When a deceitful judge brings J.D. to his knees, the stakes are raised, and the quest for retribution begins. Vance stands in the courtroom exuding an air of superiority as if the law does not apply to him. But when his target retaliates, retribution strikes swiftly, plunging the entire courtroom into a hushed astonishment. Before we embark on this journey, share in the comments your location as we unravel the layers of this gripping tale. The day unfolded in the federal courthouse with an air of tension, marked by Judge Leonard Grayson's notably dark disposition. "I don't want any coffee in my courtroom," he snapped at his clerk, causing the young woman to recoil in fear. "Inform the defense team that if they do not arrive within 2 minutes, I will have no choice but to impose contempt charges." The crowded courtroom held its breath as Grayson marched to his bench, his expression a tempest of anger and determination. His notorious reputation for severe measures was widely recognized, yet recently his actions had taken a more unpredictable turn, particularly concerning individuals aligned with conservative ideologies. "Your Honor," the court clerk announced with a hint of tension, "Vice President Vance has arrived to provide his testimony." Grayson's expression shifted to one of deep intensity. "Ah, how intriguing," he smirked, his contempt laid bare for all to see. "Ensure he understands that this isn't a place for formalities. In my courtroom, his position holds no power." The air grew thick with tension as J.D. Vance stepped inside, a storm brewing in his eyes. He advanced with a measured grace, acknowledging the court personnel with a subtle nod, a silent promise of reckoning in his demeanor. Grayson observed him intently, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the bench, a storm of anticipation brewing within him. "Let's clarify a few things," Grayson declared, his tone laced with disdain. "Your title in Washington means nothing to me. In this courtroom, I wield the power of justice. Do you understand, Mr. Vance?" The vice president's calculated reply only served to deepen Grayson's simmering frustration. "Absolutely, Your Honor. I stand as an observer, committed to unveiling the reality that lies beneath the surface." "What is the truth?" Grayson sneered. "We'll find out soon enough." His eyes narrowed as they fell upon the defense table, a silent storm brewing within him. Now let the games of power begin. "For the record," Grayson cut through the defense attorney's opening statement with a sharp interjection, "the relentless drama unfolding in my courtroom has worn me thin." He cast a sharp glare at Vance. "This is not a gathering for political cheerleading." The defense attorney made another attempt. "Your Honor, we are merely laying the groundwork for understanding Robert Langston's philanthropic endeavors. The situation—" Grayson let out a sharp, mocking laugh. "The situation is that your client stands accused of tax evasion, end of story. I have no interest in hearing about his alleged philanthropic endeavors." With each mention of Sterling's contributions to the community, Grayson's hostility grew, cutting off the attorney with a sharp edge that hinted at deeper motives. "Unimportant. Advance forward. Consider this your final notice." His gavel struck with relentless authority, each blow echoing through the courtroom, leaving the court reporters scrambling to capture the unfolding drama. As Vance prepared to take the stand, Grayson's demeanor spiraled into chaos. "Stand up straight when you take the oath," he barked, despite Vance's posture being nothing short of perfect. "And articulate your words with conviction. I refuse to tolerate any deceptive rhetoric in my courtroom." "Your Honor," Vance began, his voice steady yet laced with an undercurrent of tension, "I can vouch for Robert Langston's openness about the financial dealings of the Unity Fund." "Oh, here we go," Grayson interjected, his eyes narrowing with a dramatic flare. "Another narrative steeped in idealized notions of familial integrity." The atmosphere in the gallery crackled with tension. The prosecution shifted uncomfortably as the judge's blatant partiality became unmistakable. But Grayson was only beginning his relentless pursuit. "Allow me to be unequivocal." He leaned forward, his expression darkening with intensity. "I've witnessed too many affluent elites cloak their wealth behind the guise of philanthropy. Your arrival holds no sway over me, Mr. Vice President. Indeed, it deepens my suspicion regarding the integrity of the accused." Vance maintained his cool exterior, yet the tranquility he exuded only served to intensify Grayson's fury. The judge's hands quivered ever so slightly as he rifled through the stack of papers, his gaze flickering anxiously to certain files laid out before him. Vance pressed on, his voice unwavering, revealing the meticulously gathered proof of Robert Langston's philanthropic endeavors, notably the meetings of the March Foundation. Grayson nearly erupted, declaring those records unacceptable despite the absence of any challenge. His response felt intensely personal, tinged with an unsettling urgency. The defense attorney rose, a determined glint in their eye. "On what basis are you—" "Do not even think about challenging my decisions." Grayson's face burned with a fierce intensity. "Utter another syllable, and you'll find yourself in the same predicament as your client." The prosecutor squirmed in his chair, a sense of unease creeping over him. This transcended the bounds of legal judgment. The situation was beginning to resemble a calculated act of retribution. "Your Honor," Vance declared, his tone unwavering yet respectful. "The submission of these documents was executed in accordance with the discovery process." "Oh, were they really?" Grayson mocked with a cold smile. "So I take it your privileged ties to the White House played no role in this, right? Allow me to share a truth about your kind, Mr. Vice President. You believe you can stride into my courtroom, cloaked in your political advantage, and—" "Objection, Your Honor, this cannot stand." The defense attorney summoned his resolve. "This is utterly unacceptable." "Silence!" Grayson bellowed, his gavel crashing down with a force that reverberated ominously throughout the chamber. "I refuse to be admonished on matters of decorum within my own domain, particularly not by a mere pawn of the establishment." And his— "Your Honor," Vance interjected with a measured tone, his eyes glinting with a hidden intensity, "it might be prudent to delve into the details of what transpired during the meeting on March 15th, Dr." The transformation in Grayson's demeanor was immediate and profound. The fury etched on his features transformed into a chilling resolve. Was it trepidation? His hands suspended in the air, the gavel poised for judgment, he locked eyes with Vance, a realization dawning as if he were witnessing him anew. Those who dare to cross the line will find themselves facing the consequences. In a world where power and betrayal intertwine, the quest for retribution becomes a dangerous game. Every move is calculated, every alliance tested as the shadows of vengeance loom large. Justice will be served, but at what cost? "Those meetings hold no significance in this matter," he asserted, though his tone wavered, revealing a hint of doubt. Yet his gaze was drawn repeatedly to a specific folder resting on his bench, one that had seemingly materialized just that morning. "Insignificant?" Vance inquired softly. "That's intriguing, Your Honor. In light of the discussions that were intricately tied to donations aimed at—" "That's it!" Grayson pounded his fists onto the bench with a fierce intensity. "Utter another word about those meetings and I will ensure your exit is swift and decisive." The audience held their breath, captivated by the unraveling facade of the judge, whose once unshakable demeanor began to fracture before their eyes. His hands trembled with urgency as he rifled through the documents on his desk, fighting to assert dominance over the unfolding chaos. "Indeed," Grayson pressed on, his tone sharpening with an unsettling intensity. "Your actions have led me to a point of deep disdain. Do you really believe your status shields you? You're merely a pawn in a high-stakes game, cloaked in designer threads." "Your Honor," Vance stood resolute, unyielding in the face of the unfolding chaos. "This matter is entirely separate from my role. Since you brought up the topic of protection, maybe we should delve into the payments made by the Horizon Trust for safeguarding interests." Grayson's expression shifted dramatically, his face draining of color in a heartbeat. "How could you possibly think that was acceptable? What payments are we even talking about?" There were no limits to the lengths one would go to reclaim what was lost. to ensure that those who had wronged them faced the consequences of their actions. The shadows of betrayal loomed large, and the quest for retribution was just beginning. "Call for the guards! Expel this man from my courtroom at once!" The court officers lingered, their eyes darting nervously between one another. Grayson's actions had ventured into dangerous territory, and it was clear to all. "Indeed, Your Honor," Vance made a move toward his briefcase. "I possess some rather intriguing financial documents here. Can you clarify the regular transfers from foreign accounts that seem to conveniently match your decisions against conservative defendants?" "Silence," Grayson erupted, abandoning all semblance of his composed authority. "Your claim to power is unfounded, devoid of legitimacy. I hold the power in this domain. Me, not some sycophant who—" Vance steadily raised a document, his expression unwavering. "Your endorsement on these authorization forms indicates a different narrative, Your Honor." The judge's subsequent response left even his own team in disbelief. He surged ahead, his finger quivering as it aimed accusingly at Vance. "You set those up. This is a trap." A plot steeped in betrayal, indeed. He realized his mistake, but it was already too late. His eruption had exposed deeper truths than any proof ever could. "A web of deceit?" Vance whispered with a chilling intensity. "Fascinating selection of language, Your Honor, particularly in light of your clandestine discussions with specific advocacy organizations. I refuse to be questioned in my own domain." Grayson was seething with barely contained fury now. "You believe you can waltz in here wearing that self-satisfied grin and what proof do you have?" He unleashed the final word with a venomous intensity. "Evidence," Vance stated with a steady demeanor, "reveals a troubling trend, reminiscent of the Thompson case from last month, where a small business owner was stripped of everything due to your refusal to permit the presentation of his charitable contribution." In that moment, Grayson's laughter echoed with a manic intensity, a sound that hinted at deeper, darker motivations lurking beneath the surface. "The case of Thompson. That deceitful figure got exactly what was coming to him. They've brought this upon themselves. These individuals believe they can shield themselves with their beliefs and moral principles while, or perhaps," Vance interjected, revealing another document, "we should delve into the Wilson hearing, where you inexplicably sealed all records mere hours after your meeting with the representatives from the Horizon Trust." The judge's expression contorted with barely contained fury. "What leads you to know about—" He halted suddenly, the weight of his mistake crashing down on him. "What is it that you wish to know, Your Honor? Is the gathering set to unfold? Or the sudden influx of $100,000 that showed up in your offshore account the very next day?" Whispers filled the gallery, a tension hanging in the air. Grayson pounded his gavel with increasing urgency, each blow echoing his growing frustration. "Silence! I demand silence now!" His voice trembled with urgency. "This is nothing but a carefully orchestrated scheme, a calculated maneuver to—" "Similar to the situation with Mrs. Anderson?" Vance forged ahead. "A grandmother stripped of her life savings, silenced before she could reveal the truth behind her fortune? It's quite intriguing how the organization that took legal action against her contributed to your re-election campaign mere weeks prior." "Be quiet!" Grayson howled, his facade crumbling into chaos. "Your claim is baseless, devoid of any legitimacy." "I hold the power in this domain." "Me, absolutely not, Your Honor." Vance's steady voice pierced the turmoil. "You don't wield the authority of the law. It's your duty to deliver it, just as you did when you pledged your allegiance to the position. It was the very day you initiated that account in the Caymans." Grayson rose to his feet, his robes in disarray, gesturing frantically at Vance. "Officers, seize this individual for defying authority. Take hold of those files, every last one of them, immediately." "What are you holding back for?" Grayson unleashed a furious tirade at the wavering officers. "I issued a command. Bring him to justice." "Before they proceed, Your Honor," Vance interjected, maintaining his steady demeanor, Maybe we ought to explore the reasons behind your intense desire to obtain these specific documents. Your understanding is not my concern." Grayson was now pacing behind his bench, his movements tense and restless, like a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "I serve as a federal judge. My choices are irrevocable. My power knows no bounds." "Unquestioned power," Vance mused, "appears to be a persistent motif in your approach, Your Honor, similar to the recent Williams case, where you commanded the sealing of all evidence related to your private discussions." Grayson halted abruptly, caught in a moment of tense anticipation. "What led you to—" "Those documents were meant to be—" He found himself ensnared once more, yet the harm had already been inflicted. "What exactly are we talking about here, Your Honor? Ravaged? Are you referring to the documents from the Horizon Trust discussions?" "That's it!" Grayson bellowed, his expression twisted in a tempest of rage. "You self-righteous conservatives believe you can waltz into my courtroom and unveil?" He halted suddenly, understanding the peril of his near confession. "What is it that you want to reveal?" Vance insisted, his tone unwavering. "The calculated manipulation of the legal system, the deliberate pursuit of those with opposing views, or maybe the funds you've been acquiring to—" "Enough! I demand silence!" Grayson roared, spiraling into a frenzy of chaos. With a fierce determination, he seized his gavel and flung it across the courtroom, just avoiding a direct hit on his unsuspecting clerk. "Are you ready to discuss the manipulation of authority? Prepare to witness the consequences of unchecked authority. Officers, I demand this man be taken into custody immediately. Anyone who defies my command will find themselves behind bars alongside him." The courtroom was enveloped in a tense stillness. The judge's labored breaths echoed ominously in the charged air, heightening the suspense that hung like a storm cloud over the courtroom. The officers remained frozen, their expressions betraying a deep struggle between obligation and moral integrity. "Final opportunity, Mr. Vance," Grayson hissed, his tone laced with malice. "Relinquish those files and surrender, or I will ensure you face consequences that will keep you from ever stepping into a courtroom again." "That's a compelling warning, Your Honor," Vance responded, pulling out another folder strikingly similar to the one you presented to Sarah Mitchell before closing her discrimination case. Immediately following your encounter with CEO Victor Calloway, Grayson's complexion turned an ashen white. "What is happening? What led you to—" "Peterson," Vance continued with an unsettling calm, "who funneled $500,000 into your Cayman account. The very same Peterson who orchestrated that clandestine yacht meeting last month, attended by 7 other judges, all of whom curiously rendered decisions in his favor just a week later." "You have no right," Grayson shouted, his voice laced with fury, spittle flying from his mouth. "The documents are confidential. Those discussions were meant to remain confidential." "You acted outside the law." "Confidential, much like the tapes hidden away in your office?" Vance inquired with a hushed intensity. "Are you referring to the instances when you clearly instructed your assistant to destroy evidence that could have cleared 3 defendants aligned with conservative values?" The clerk, seated at her desk, suddenly broke down in tears. "He forced my hand," she cried out in despair. "He threatened to destroy my future if I didn't—" "Hush!" Grayson bellowed, yet his grip on power was slipping away. "This evidence holds no weight in the court of law. There's no evidence to support your claims. In fact," Vance interjected, "all of it was acquired through lawful means." The surveillance footage captured the clandestine act of shredding documents under the cover of darkness. The threats were captured by your own phone. Your signature was the key that unlocked the transfers. Grayson surged ahead, his determination palpable as he stretched across the bench, grasping for Vance's evidence folder with a fierce urgency. "Hand over those files now. I command you to request rejected." A sudden voice pierced through the tension in the back of the courtroom. All eyes shifted as a squad of FBI agents strode purposefully down the center aisle. The courtroom fell silent as the lead agent stepped forward, his badge shimmering ominously in the harsh lights, declaring that this court was now the focus of a federal investigation. "Judge Leonard Grayson, do not move an inch." "This is unacceptable." Grayson recoiled, panic etched across his face as he stumbled away from his seat. "I am untouchable. I possess influential ties." "Are you aware of my identity?" "Oh, we are fully aware of your identity, Your Honor," the agent responded. "In light of your recent engagements with the Horizon Trust, the offshore accounts you control, and the strategic maneuvers aimed at undermining conservative defendants." Grayson's gaze flickered anxiously across the courtroom, searching for a way out. "This is all a carefully orchestrated scheme, a calculated maneuver to—" "A scheme," Vance interjected quietly. "The sole narrative unfolding here is your calculated exploitation of authority, Your Honor. Every unjust decision, every clandestine agreement, every effort to suppress the reality, it all culminates here." "You orchestrated this?" Grayson accused, his fingers shaking as it aimed at Vance. "Your loyal band of conspirators, enamored with Trump, orchestrated my downfall." "No, Your Honor," Vance replied with a steely resolve, shaking his head defiantly. "You've placed yourself in this position. We provided you with the means to seal your own fate. Your statements and deeds today have validated all that we had previously suspected." As the agents closed in, Grayson summoned every ounce of resolve, making a last-ditch effort to assert his dominance in the tense standoff. "I serve as a federal judge. You'll never take me into custody. I am the embodiment of justice. I am the embodiment of justice." The agents had to firmly hold back Grayson as he attempted to charge toward his chambers. "You have no idea," he shouted, his voice filled with desperation. "They forced my hand. The groundwork. They hold secrets that could unravel lives. Should I speak out?" "Now that's intriguing," the lead investigator remarked. "Reveal the secrets of this foundation, Your Honor." Yet, in a moment of frantic clarity, Grayson became acutely aware of the extent of his own disclosures. His expression contorted into a mocking grin, even as his hands shook with barely contained fury. "I demand to speak with my attorney. When this concludes, retribution will be swift for the disgrace you've inflicted." As the tension thickened, Vance advanced, revealing yet another document with a calculated precision. "Perhaps you could clarify the details surrounding these transfer records. 7 judges, each collecting identical payments on the very same days as you. Every decision seems to target conservative defendants in these orchestrated cases." The gallery buzzed with a tense undercurrent of disbelief. This was a battle against a system steeped in betrayal. It was a vast web of intrigue. "The evidence suggests," Vance continued, his voice echoing through the hushed courtroom, "that this was a calculated maneuver to exploit the judicial system as a tool for political gain." "Yet, Your Honor, justice should never be wielded as a tool for vengeance. It is designed as a safeguard, ensuring that every American is shielded without bias." Grayson had ceased his resistance against the agents. His expression twisted in despair as the magnitude of his betrayal unfolded before him. Behind him, the court officers moved swiftly, sealing his chambers as the investigation loomed ominously ahead. His clerk found themselves under the intense scrutiny of FBI agents. With tears streaming down her face, she confessed to being coerced into destroying evidence. The judge's threats looming over her like a dark shadow, Grayson's last exit from his own courtroom was a striking emblem of retribution unfolding. As the agents escorted him in handcuffs, he cast a final glance back at J.D., a fire igniting in his eyes. "Vance, do you really believe this will alter the course of events?" He unleashed a venomous retort. "There will always be those who share my resolve. We are unstoppable. You've hit the nail on the head regarding that point." Vance responded in a hushed tone, his words laced with a simmering intensity. "Power will inevitably attract those who seek to exploit it. Yet, there will forever be those who rise to confront them. That's what drives the machinery of our justice system forward. Not the deceit you embody, but the bravery of those who stand up to it. The consequences unfolded rapidly and extended deeply. Grayson's arrest set off a chain reaction of inquiries spanning various jurisdictions. The web of deceit among the judges started to unravel as the truth emerged and brave souls stepped into the light. Yet, the most gripping moment unfolded when Sterling's case was thrown out. The newly appointed judge, meticulously sifting through the evidence that Grayson had fought tooth and nail to conceal, uncovered a startling truth. There was no foundation for the accusations. Ultimately, the fate of justice lies not in the hands of the manipulators, but in the resolve of those who stand ready to protect it. If you are committed to the fight for justice and the relentless pursuit of what is right, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more gripping narratives. May fortune smile upon you, and may the spirit of this great nation endure.